The night was heavy with fog and music, the kind of London night that hides both love and sin. Dorian Gray sat beside Lord Henry, speaking of his engagement to Sybil Vane. His voice trembled with joy. "She's pure, Henry. When she acts, she becomes the soul of every story." Henry only smiled. "Ah, the first love. It always feels eternal. But eternity, my dear boy, is only an idea." That evening, Dorian brought them both to the small theater to see the woman who had become his dream. The lights dimmed, the curtain rose, but something was wrong. Sybil's voice was hollow, her movements uncertain. The beauty that had once filled the room was gone. The audience shifted, whispering. Lord Henry looked amused. Basil looked heartbroken. When the play ended, Dorian's face was pale. "You've killed my love," he said coldly. "You're no longer an artist, only a girl who acts badly." Sybil reached for him, tears shining in her eyes. "But Dorian," she whispered, "I acted poorly because I've found something real. I can't pretend anymore. You've shown me true love." But Dorian turned away. His words cut deeper than any blade. "Without your art, you are nothing." He left her in the shadows of the stage. The next morning, a letter came. Sybil Vane had taken her own life. Dorian stared at the words, but felt nothing, not at first. Then, as he passed the portrait, he froze. The painted lips seemed crueler now. The eyes, harder. It was the same face, but the soul behind it had changed. Dorian smiled faintly, realizing the terrible truth. The wish he'd made in Basil's studio had come true. The portrait would bear his sins, and he would remain beautiful forever. London slept under a gray sky, but Dorian Gray could not rest. The letter lay on his table, Sybil Vane's last words, sealed forever in silence. For a moment, something human stirred inside him, a flicker of guilt, the faint memory of what it meant to feel. But then came Lord Henry's voice, smooth and cold as marble. "Don't think of it, Dorian. Tragedy makes us beautiful. Let her death be one more story in the theater of your life." Dorian looked up slowly. "Do you really think so?" "I know so," Henry replied. "Art is the only thing worth mourning, not people." The words fell like poison, and Dorian, still young, still flawless, began to believe them. That evening he returned home. The house was quiet, too quiet. The portrait waited for him in the studio. The change was no longer subtle. Around the painted mouth, a cruel line had appeared, a mark of pride and sin. Dorian stared at it, trembling between wonder and horror. "So it's true," he whispered. "The picture will bear my soul, and I will stay untouched." He covered the portrait, locking the door behind him. Outside, the rain began to fall again, washing the streets clean. But not him. In his heart, something darker took root. The idea that he could live without consequence. And in the silent room upstairs, beneath the draped canvas, the painted face began to smile. Weeks passed, and the scandal of Sybil Vane faded like perfume in the air. Dorian Gray moved through London's drawing rooms with a calm that frightened those who loved him. His beauty was untouched, his smile serene, as if death itself had never brushed his world. Lord Henry watched him with quiet satisfaction. "You're beginning to understand," he said. "The only way to resist temptation is to yield to it." Dorian laughed softly. "And what happens when there's nothing left to yield to?" "Then," Henry replied, "you create new sins, ones the world has never dreamed of." The words intoxicated him. He began to live as if pleasure were a religion, and he, its golden idol. Days became nights, nights became stories whispered across London. Dorian's name carried both fascination and fear. Some said he ruined everyone who loved him. Others swore he hadn't aged a single day. Meanwhile, the portrait, locked away behind a curtain, grew darker, heavier with every sin. The eyes no longer looked innocent. They burned with the fire of cruelty. One night, unable to resist, Dorian uncovered the painting again. He stared in silence. The beauty was still there, twisted now by pride, stained by indulgence. "So this is my soul," he whispered, "ugly and free." He smiled, not from joy, but from the strange power of being untouchable. Then he covered the painting once more and went out into the glittering night to sin again, beautifully,